Hey, my name's Passmore, and I'm the owner of a paint business based in Huron County, Ontario called Elevate Paint and Stain. And I'm going to talk about how I got started for $0 and how you can too. So, to start off, this is definitely going to be based on a painting business because that's what I do. However, a lot of this can probably apply to many other startup business ventures that you might be considering taking on. However, the difference with painting is the extremely low overhead costs needed to get started. So, a very brief history of me and where I came from before I started my business. I've done trades since I was 17. I've done roofing, I've done concrete. I was a carpenter for a few years. So it was back in 2022 when I was a carpenter for a local company. And I was actually sent to help out the painter that painted the houses we built. However, it wasn't for another 3 years before I finally got started. I think a lot of people get very comfortable in the situation they're in. You get your paycheck weekly or bi-weekly, and it's very reliable. It's very consistent, and there's not a lot of risk involved. However, me starting my business this year was definitely the smartest decision I've ever made. So I was hoping, best case scenario, I was able to make roughly the same amount of money that I was making previously at the construction company. I was on average, I'd say, probably pulling in about $3,500 Canadian a month, which is enough money to live if you're living at home with your parents, but definitely not enough money to say buy a house or really move up in the world. So yeah, I was kind of hoping I would just make around the same amount of money. Even a little bit of a pay cut to start would have been okay. However, I quickly realized about 1 to 2 months in that that wasn't the case, and I was completely blowing my expectations out of the water. So in my first month of business, I did about $7,000 to $8,000 in sales, and I'd say profit was probably between $4,000 and $5,000, which was more already than I was making previously at the construction company, and I worked less hours. Now, let's say you have $0 to start out. What do you do about that? I know you'll need brushes. You'll sometimes need to buy the paint. All you need to do is you just tell people. I find honesty and being open was one of my best sales tactics, and not hiding things from people at the start. So, letting people know, hey, this is my first paint job. Is it okay if I receive a 20 to 50% deposit from you up front? 9 times out of 10, especially if you're getting started by posting to Facebook or Instagram or whatever, it's probably someone that already knows of you and they're probably willing to trust you and give you that deposit. Most people are pretty good if you have a legit looking business later on down the road, anyways. So you can take that 20 to 50% deposit. You can buy all the necessary materials and whatever you need to do the job. Usually, like I say, you might need a pole, you might need some roller covers, you might need paintbrushes. Those are all very cheap, like they don't cost a whole lot of money. And you can take that, do the job, and then get paid, and you'll have a lot of money left over. I'd say one important thing that you can do maybe before you get started, or at least very early on, is business cards. I was hesitant about business cards when I got started, just being that I'm only 25 years old. I kind of thought business cards were maybe a little outdated with social media kind of taking over. Maybe you have a Benjamin Moore, maybe you have a Sherwin Williams, maybe a Dulux in your area. Go to all of those, and usually they have a little spot up at the counter where you can leave business cards, which people are in and out of the paint store every day, and they are taking business cards because not everyone likes to paint themselves. I'd say if you're a little nervous about your experience and maybe you haven't painted that much, I'd say a really easy way to get some experience is assuming maybe you're younger and you live at home, or maybe you're older and you have an apartment or a house or whatever. I mean, typically your landlord isn't going to care if you repaint the place. Your parents probably love it if you're willing to paint the place for free. So, go paint your own house, paint something that's yours where there's not a customer there that's going to get mad at you if you mess some things up. The other nice thing about painting, don't be scared to mess things up. You're always going to mess things up. In 40 years from now, you could be a multi-million dollar a year paint business that's insanely scaled, you're still going to make mistakes. You're still going to mess things up. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just knowing how to fix the mistakes, which is also pretty easy. If you find yourself good at marketing and you find yourself getting lots of jobs, and let's say you come across a job early on in your career and it's like a full house paint for a contractor on a brand new house, and it's like a $25,000 quoted job, and you know you can't handle it by yourself. You need a crew of people and you're just not ready to do it. There's nothing wrong with that. That's a really good opportunity for you. I would find someone that can handle that, that's local to you, and I would reach out to them and let them know that you have a good job for them and you're wondering if they have the time to get it done. If they do, that's a really good opportunity for you to try to develop a relationship with this person. They'll be very thankful that you just sent them a big job, and they'll be more likely to maybe start sending you some smaller jobs that you can take on. So, next thing I'm going to talk about is pricing. So, that is definitely going to change depending on where you're located. So, I know in the painting subreddit, if you look through there, you'll see a lot of people posting a job that they quote and what they're going to quote it for. And you'll see people arguing in the comments. There'll be people saying, holy, that's super high. I can't believe you're pricing it at that. And then you'll have other people saying, that's super low. I would price it at this. So it depends on your area. People charge very differently depending on where they live. Just use Google or ChatGPT. Just ask, ask the question, what do people typically charge here? And if you're new, I'd start around the lower end of things so that you land 90 to 100% of all your jobs. And, from there, you'll gain more experience and you'll get to a point where you can kind of name your price. And if people say no, that's totally fine. So for me, living in the location I do, which is Huron County, Ontario, I price for inside, I do about $2 per square foot. So the square foot of a room, if you have 10 by 10, that'd be 100 square feet. So $2 a square foot to do the walls would be about $200 for walls. For ceilings, typically about $1 a square foot. So again, in that room that's a 10 by 10, it'd be $100 to do the ceiling. And then for trim, it's usually $1 per linear foot. Trim's actually where the money is made in a lot of these jobs. So instead of taking a measuring tape and measuring the actual linear square foot of the baseboard and trim, I would say the easiest way to do things is the typical formula that people go off of is it's 2.5 times the square foot of the room. So 2.5 times 100, which is 250. So all in all, if you were to do this hypothetical 10 by 10 room and you're going to do the walls, the ceiling, and the trim, you're looking at about $200 for walls, $250 for trim, and $100 for the ceiling. So you're about $550 to paint a 10 by 10 bedroom if you're doing a full paint. So right off that, you can understand that there is a lot of money to be made in painting. Earlier this year, I did a 1,600 square foot home, and it was crown trim, all the doors and the walls. That was quoted at $7,500. And after material and paying for my employees' wages for the roughly 2 weeks, I was left with about 4,000, maybe a little over 4,000, between $4,000 and $4,500. So to kind of wrap everything up here, I've maybe had my business going for about 6 months. It has been very successful. My best month, I did about 21,000 in gross sales. So after paying employee wages, after paying shop rent and the bill at the paint store, and just all the other bills I have in life, which have accumulated to being a decent amount of money, a couple grand. I'm looking at I kept probably between $15,000 and $16,000 of that profit for that month. So, like I say, I went from making $3,500 a month to 5 months later making around $15,000 a month. Now, that was only my peak month. I would say to average everything out since I've started, maybe in the 6 months, I'd probably would be sitting anywhere between $8,000 to $10,000 profit per month. So that's profit. That's money in my pocket. Which I think for anyone in any position that you're in is great. You might have a good job already, but like I say, the benefits of being your own boss and being in control of your life and having that freedom is everything. And I mean, some people, it's not for everyone. Some people like the security and the reliability of just knowing that, you just got to get up in the morning and show up and put your hours in And every 2 weeks or every 1 week, you're going to have X amount of dollars. And over the years, that will go up, maybe for some people more than others. But for me, this risk was worth every struggle that I've had to deal with. And with that being said, there hasn't been a whole lot of struggling. It's definitely stressful at times, but you'll get through it, and it'll get nothing but easier as you get more veteran in running your own business. So don't stress about all the little things. It'll all work out. It'll all come together. Uh, you'll learn as you go. Just make sure that you do good work and you leave a good impression for people, and they will recommend you, and your business will do very, very well. So yeah, that's it. I hope you guys liked the video. I hope I was able to help you guys with any questions that you might have had, or just relieve some of the stresses or the overthinking about whether you should get into this. I am all for it. I think you should go ahead and try. You don't need any money to start, so there's not a whole lot of risk involved with just trying it out and seeing how it works and seeing if it's for you. So get off YouTube and go get started. Go make some money.